The wind howled through the broken windows like a dying animal. Hannah pulled the thin blanket tighter around her shoulders, but it did nothing against the cold. Her fingers had turned blue hours ago. She could barely feel them anymore. The apartment that had once been warm and full of life was now a frozen tomb. Ice covered the walls in thick sheets. Her breath came out in white clouds that hung in the air before fading away. Every breath hurt. Every movement took effort she barely had left. Hannah looked at the small pile of wooden furniture in the corner. It was all that remained. Yesterday, she had burned her father's favorite chair. The day before that, the kitchen table where her family used to eat together. Soon there would be nothing left to burn, and then she would freeze like everyone else. 3 months ago, everything had been different. Velis Prime had been a beautiful world with moderate temperatures and gentle seasons. Her people, the Velisians, had lived here for generations. They had built cities and farms. They had families and futures. Then the terraforming machines broke down. Nobody knew why. One day, they just stopped working correctly. Instead of maintaining the planet's climate, they began pumping out cold. The temperature dropped fast. Too fast. At first, the government said they would fix it. They told everyone to stay calm and stay inside. Help was coming, they promised. The Galactic Council would send aid. Everything would be fine. But help never came. The government's messages stopped after the first month when the capital city went dark. The Galactic Council argued about jurisdiction and protocols. Other alien species debated whether intervention was legal. They talked and talked while Hannah's people died. Her mother had been the first in her family to go. She had gone asleep one night and never woke up. The cold had taken her quietly. Hannah's father had tried to stay strong for his children, but she could see the fear in his eyes. Her younger brother, Jingho, had been only 12 years old. He had gone out to search for food when their supplies ran low. He never came back. Hannah and her father had found him the next day, frozen solid against a wall, just 2 blocks from home. Her father had lasted another 3 weeks. He had spent every day trying to repair the building's heating system, working until his hands bled and his body shook with exhaustion. One morning, Hannah woke to find him lying next to the broken machines. His tools were still in his hands. He had worked himself to death trying to save her. That had been 5 days ago. Now Hannah was alone. The building was silent except for the wind. She knew there were other survivors somewhere in the city, but they were scattered and isolated. Nobody had the strength to search anymore. Everyone was just waiting to die. Hannah walked to the window and looked outside. The city that had once been full of color and movement was now white and still. Snow covered everything. Ice hung from every building. The streets were empty, except for shapes she tried not to look at too closely. Frozen people who had tried to escape, to find help, to survive. They were all gone now. She was 19 years old, and she was going to die alone in the cold. The thought should have scared her more, but she was too tired to feel much of anything. Her body was shutting down slowly. Her metabolism, designed for warm weather, could not handle these temperatures. She could feel herself slowing down, like a machine running out of power. Hannah picked up the last piece of furniture, a small wooden stool her brother had made in school. She held it for a moment, remembering his proud smile when he brought it home. Then she placed it in the makeshift fire pit she had created in the middle of the room. She lit it with the last of her matches. The flames were small and weak, but they gave off a little heat. Hannah sat as close as she dared, holding her hands toward the warmth. This fire would last maybe 2 hours. After that, there was nothing left to burn. She thought about her family. She hoped they were somewhere better now, somewhere warm. She hoped they were not cold anymore. She would see them soon. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. The cold was very close now. She could feel it in her bones. As the fire flickered and started to die, Hana heard something strange. A sound she had not heard in months. A loud roar that came from the sky. She forced herself to stand and walk to the window. High above the frozen city, lights moved through the clouds. For a moment, her heart jumped. Was it the rescue fleet? Had help finally come? But as the lights got closer, she could see it was just one small ship. Not the dozens of rescue vessels she had imagined. Just one tiny craft, smaller than the cargo ships that used to deliver supplies to the city. It was struggling, smoking, clearly damaged. The ship passed over the city and crashed somewhere beyond the ruins, out in the frozen wasteland. Hana watched the smoke rise from where it had gone down. Whoever was on that ship was probably dead now, she thought. Or they would be soon. Nothing survived long in the cold. Not her people. Not anyone. Hana turned away from the window and sat back down by the dying fire. The flames were almost gone now. She pulled the blanket around herself and closed her eyes. The cold pressed in from all sides. She did not know that the ship's pilot had survived. She did not know that he was already working to repair his vessel. She did not know that he was human, a species known for their strange habit of helping others, even when it made no sense. She did not know that her life was about to change. That the cold, which had taken everything from her, was about to give her something back. Not through mercy or magic, but through the simple act of one person refusing to look away from another person's suffering. The fire went out completely. Darkness filled the room. Hana sat in the cold and the dark and waited for the end to come. She had maybe one day left. Maybe two if she was unlucky. She did not know that help was already coming. She did not know about Taemin. Taemin pulled himself out of the crashed ship and immediately felt the brutal cold hit his face. Even through his thermal suit, he could sense how wrong this planet's temperature was. His suit's display showed -40 degrees and dropping. This was not natural for a terraformed world. He looked at his ship and cursed under his breath. The hull had cracked during the emergency landing. The navigation system was completely fried. The communication array had been damaged by the same spatial anomaly that had pulled him off course. He was stuck here until he could make repairs, and those repairs would take days, maybe a week. Taemin was a xenobiologist by training, but like most humans who worked alone in deep space, he knew how to fix things. He had tools. He had supplies. He had training. What he did not have was time to waste. He started pulling equipment from the ship's cargo bay. Emergency repair kits, thermal generators, food synthesizers, medical supplies. Everything he might need to survive while he worked on getting the ship functional again. As he worked, his suit's sensors picked up something strange. Life signs. Faint ones, scattered across what looked like ruins a few kilometers away. Taemin paused and checked the readings again. Yes, definitely life signs. Multiple ones. But they were weak. Very weak. The smart thing would be to ignore them. Focus on repairs. Get off this frozen rock as fast as possible. That was protocol. That was common sense. But Taemin had never been very good at following protocol when people needed help. He loaded a portable scanner and some emergency supplies onto a small sled. Then he set out toward the ruins, following the life sign readings. The wind cut through the landscape like knives. Snow had piled up in deep drifts. Everything was white and dead and frozen. The ruins were worse than he expected. An entire city, frozen solid. Buildings with broken windows. Streets buried under ice. And shapes you tried not to look at too carefully. Bodies, hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. All frozen. What had happened here? Taemin checked his database. Velis Prime, terraformed world. Population 3 million. Climate controlled. But something had gone terribly wrong. The terraforming system had failed, and the temperature had crashed. And apparently, nobody had come to help. The life sign reading led him to a tall apartment building. Most of its windows were broken. Ice covered the walls. Taman climbed the stairs carefully, checking each floor. Empty, empty, empty. Then on the 5th floor, he found her. She was sitting against the wall, wrapped in a thin blanket that would not keep anyone warm in this cold. Her fur was matted with frost. Her lips had a blue tint. Her eyes were closed. She was barely breathing. Taman did not hesitate. He pulled out his emergency thermal blanket and wrapped it around her. Then he activated 2 heat packs and placed them against her chest and back. He checked her temperature with his medical scanner. Dangerously low. She was in the late stages of hypothermia. If he had arrived even a few hours later, she would be dead. He lifted her carefully. She was light, too light. Starving as well as freezing. He carried her back to his ship as fast as he could, fighting through the wind and snow. Inside the ship, he placed her near the engine core where it was warmest. He wrapped her in more blankets and activated the ship's medical bay. The scanner gave him her species information. Volition. Evolved for moderate climates. Her body was not designed for cold like this. No wonder she was dying. He prepared some nutrient paste, the kind used for emergency rations. It was not tasty, but it was designed to be easily digestible and packed with calories. He warmed it up and waited. She woke slowly, her eyes opening with confusion and fear. She tried to pull away from him, but she was too weak to move much. Taman held up his hands, showing he meant no harm. His translator unit clicked on. "Easy," he said gently. "You are safe now. You are warm. I am not going to hurt you." She stared at him with wide eyes. She was shaking, but he could not tell if it was from cold or fear. Probably both. "What? What are you?" she whispered. Her voice was rough, like she had not spoken in days. "Human?" Taman said. "My name is Taman. My ship crashed. I found you in the city. You were freezing. I brought you here." She looked around the ship's interior, at the warmth and the light. Then she looked back at him. Why? The question caught him off guard. "Why what? Why help me? You do not know me. I am nothing to you." Taman blinked. "You were dying. I could help. That is reason enough." She did not seem to understand. She kept staring at him like he was speaking a different language. Maybe in a way he was. Maybe kindness was a foreign concept on this frozen world now. He offered her the warm nutrient paste. "Here, eat. You need calories. Your body needs energy to warm up." She hesitated, then took the food. She ate slowly at first, then faster. She had not eaten in days, Taman realized. Maybe longer. While she ate, he explained his situation. His ship was damaged. He needed time to repair it. He could not call for help because his communication system was broken. But he had supplies. He had heat. He had food. She was welcome to stay until he got the ship working again. "What is your name?" he asked. "Hannah," she said quietly. "Well, Hannah, you are safe now. Rest. Get warm. We can talk more later." But she did not rest. Instead, she started talking. Maybe it was relief, or maybe she just needed to tell someone what had happened. She told him about the terraforming failure. She told him about the terraforming failure, about the cold that came so fast, about her family dying one by one, about the government collapse, about the Galactic Council doing nothing while millions died. Taman felt anger rising in his chest. Not at her, but at the systems that had let this happen. at the bureaucrats who debated protocols while people froze, at the politicians who cared more about jurisdiction than lives. "How many?" he asked. "How many survivors are left?" Hannah shook her head. "I do not know. I thought I was alone. But there might be others hiding in the ruins. Too weak to search. Too scared to move." Taman stood up and started gathering equipment. Medical supplies, portable heaters, food, everything he could spare. "What are you doing?" Hannah asked. "We are going to find them," Taman said simply. "What? No. You need to repair your ship. You need to leave. This planet is death. You cannot save everyone." Taman looked at her with steady eyes. "Maybe not everyone, but I can try to save whoever I can find. Are you coming?" Hannah stared at him. This human, this stranger, was willing to risk his own survival to search for people he had never met. People who were not even his species. It made no sense. It was illogical and dangerous and stupid. But she found herself nodding. "Yes, I am coming." For the first time in 3 months, Hannah felt something other than cold and despair. She felt hope. The search took 3 days. 3 long, exhausting days of moving through frozen buildings and empty streets. Taman had rigged portable heaters from his ship's spare parts, creating small zones of warmth they could carry with them. He and Hannah moved carefully through the ruins, scanning for life signs, calling out for survivors. The first one they found was an elderly female named Minji. She had been an engineer for the terraforming company before everything collapsed. They found her in a basement, wrapped in every piece of clothing she owned, burning papers to stay warm. She was so weak she could barely stand. Taman carried her back to a shelter he had set up in a building near his ship. He gave her warm food and blankets. He checked her vital signs and gave her medicine for frostbite. Hannah watched him work with quiet amazement. He moved with efficiency and care, never complaining about the extra burden. The second and third survivors were brothers, both young males named Junho and Kyung. They had survived by hiding in a store and burning merchandise for heat. They were suspicious of Taman at first. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy. Some said they were aggressive. Others said they were unpredictable. But the brothers were too weak to argue when Taman offered them food and warmth. Over the next 2 days, they found 9 more survivors. A young mother with a baby, 2 teenagers who had been classmates, an old male who had been a teacher, a female doctor who had run out of medicine weeks ago. Each one was brought to the shelter. Each one was given heat and food and medical care. Taman worked without stopping. He set up heating systems using parts from his ship. He rationed his food supplies carefully. He treated injuries and sickness with his limited medical equipment. Hannah watched him skip meals, giving his portions to the weakest survivors. She watched him work through the night to keep the heaters running. She watched him comfort a crying child with patience and kindness. On the 4th day, they found the last survivor, a young boy named Doyun, maybe 6 years old. He was clutching his mother's frozen body, refusing to let go. Taman gently separated the child from his mother and carried him back to the shelter. The boy did not speak. He just stared with empty eyes. That night, Hannah counted heads. 14 survivors, including herself. 14 people pulled back from the edge of death. But Taman's supplies were running dangerously low. His ship's food synthesizer could only produce so much. His power cells were draining fast to keep the heaters running. She found him outside the shelter, checking the power levels on one of the portable generators. He looked exhausted. His thermal suit was dirty and torn. He had not slept properly in days. "This cannot continue," Hannah said. "You do not have enough supplies for all of us." Taman did not look up from his work. "We will make it work. How?" Your food will run out in 3 days. Your power cells may be 4. Then we all freeze together. I am working on it, he said. You are killing yourself for strangers, Hana said, her voice harder than she intended. Why? Why do you care so much? Taemin finally looked at her. His eyes were tired but steady. Because someone should. Because your government abandoned you. Because the galaxy looked away. Because if I do not help, who will? But it is not your responsibility. We are not your people. This is not your planet. Does that matter? Taemin asked. You are people. You are suffering. I can help. That is all the reason I need. Hana had no answer for that. In her world, in the galaxy she knew, people did not think that way. Everyone looked after their own. Species helped their own kind. Nobody sacrificed themselves for strangers. But here was this human, proving everything she knew was wrong. The next morning, Minji approached Taemin with an idea. She had been thinking about the central terraforming station, the massive facility that controlled the planet's climate. If they could reach it, and if she could access the systems, she might be able to reverse the damage. Restart the heating protocols. Save the planet. How far? Taemin asked. 50 kilometers, Minji said. Through frozen wasteland. No shelter. No heat except what we carry. Taemin was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. We can do it. I will prepare sleds. Strip the ship for parts. Build portable heaters. We leave in 2 days. Hana grabbed his arm. That is suicide. Even with your equipment, we will never make it. And if you strip your ship for parts, you will never be able to repair it. You will be trapped here. Then I am trapped, Taemin said simply. But if there is a chance to fix this planet, we have to try. You are insane, Hana said. You are going to die for people you met 4 days ago. Taemin smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. Maybe, but I would rather die trying to help than live knowing I looked away. Over the next 2 days, Taemin tore his ship apart. He removed heating elements from the life support system. He pulled power cells from the engines. He stripped the hull for insulation material. Hana watched the ship transform from a working spacecraft into a gutted shell. His only way home, destroyed piece by piece. He built sleds from the ship's frame. He created portable shelters from the hull panels. He fashioned thermal suits from emergency blankets and insulation. It was genius work, the kind of improvisation that could only come from desperation and determination. The survivors watched in silence. They understood what he was doing. He was giving up everything for them. His ship, his safety, his way home. All for strangers on a frozen world. On the night before they left, young Da-Yoon finally spoke. He'd been silent since they found him, lost in grief. But that night, he walked up to Taemin and tugged on his thermal suit. Are you an angel? The boy asked in a small voice. Taemin knelt down to the boy's level. No, I am just a person trying to help. My mother said angels help people, Da-Yoon said. You helped me, so you must be an angel. Taemin's eyes got shiny. He pulled the boy into a gentle hug. Your mother was a smart person. You remember her words, okay? Hana turned away, feeling something break inside her chest. This human, this strange, stubborn, wonderful human was going to get himself killed. And somehow, she had started to care whether he lived or died. The morning came cold and dark. Taemin gathered everyone together. He explained the plan. 50 kilometers to the terraforming station. They would move in stages, setting up heated camps every 10 kilometers. The journey would take 5 or 6 days, maybe more. It would be dangerous. Some of them might not make it. Anyone who wants to stay here can stay, Taemin said. No judgment. No shame. This is your choice. Nobody stayed. Every single survivor chose to make the journey. Because if this crazy human was willing to sacrifice everything for them, the least they could do was try. They left at dawn. 14 survivors and 1 human, pulling sleds loaded with equipment through a frozen wasteland. Behind them, Taman's ship sat empty and cold. A skeleton of metal and broken dreams. Hana looked back one last time at the ship. Then she looked at Taman, who was already moving forward, helping Minji over a snowdrift. She did not understand humans, but she was beginning to love them. The first day of the journey was hell. The wind hit them like a physical force, trying to push them back toward the ruins. Snow piled up around their legs with every step. The sleds were heavy, loaded with equipment and supplies. Everyone struggled, even with Taman's thermal suits helping to keep them warm. Taman moved up and down the line constantly, helping whoever was falling behind. He pulled sleds when people got too tired. He checked everyone's temperature regularly with his medical scanner. He encouraged them with words and smiles, even though Hana could see the exhaustion in his eyes. They made 8 kilometers the first day. Not the 10 Taman had hoped for, but close. He set up the portable shelter, a dome made from his ship's hull panels. Inside, he activated the heating units. The space was cramped with 15 people, but it was warm. That was all that mattered. They ate small portions of Taman's rations. The food was running low faster than planned. Hana noticed Taman taking smaller portions than everyone else. When she called him on it, he just shrugged. "I am bigger," he said. "I can handle less food better than the others." It was a lie, but she let it go. There was no point arguing with him. He was going to take care of everyone else first, no matter what she said. The second day was worse. The temperature dropped even further. One of the younger males, Junho, twisted his ankle badly on hidden ice. Taman had to carry him on his back for the last 3 kilometers. They only made 7 kilometers that day. That night, Minji pulled Hana aside. "We are moving too slow," the old engineer said. "At this rate, we will run out of food before we reach the station, and the power cells for the heaters will not last." "I know," Hana said. "We should split up. Send the strongest ahead to reach the station faster." "Taman will never agree to that," Hana said. "Then we need to convince him. Or we all die." Hana brought the suggestion to Taman that night. He listened quietly, then shook his head. "No, we stay together. Nobody gets left behind." "But we will not make it at this pace," Hana argued. "Then we move faster tomorrow," Taman said. His voice was firm, final. The discussion was over. The third day, Taman proved he meant it. He woke everyone before dawn. He redistributed the loads on the sleds, taking more weight on his own sled. He set a faster pace. When people complained they could not keep up, he encouraged them. When they said they were too tired, he reminded them why they were doing this. They made 12 kilometers that day, but the cost was high. Everyone was exhausted. Taman had pushed himself hardest of all. Hana saw him stumble several times, saw him breathing hard, saw the way his hands shook when he set up camp. On the 4th day, they lost someone. One of the older males, a teacher named Sangwoo. He had been weak from the start, sick with something Taman's limited medicine could not fix. He made it 6 kilometers before his heart just stopped. Taman tried to revive him, pumping his chest, breathing air into his lungs. But it was too late. They buried him in the snow. There was no time for proper ceremonies. Do-young cried. Several others cried too. Taman stood silent, his jaw tight, his hands clenched into fists. "This is my fault," he said quietly. "I should have moved faster. I should have left him at the shelter with some supplies." "He wanted to come," Hana said. "He made his choice." "You cannot save everyone, Taman." "I should try," he said. They moved on. 13 people now instead of 14. The mood was dark. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Who would be next? On the 5th day, disaster struck. One of the portable heaters failed. Taemin worked on it for 2 hours in the brutal cold, his fingers going numb, but he could not fix it. The power cell had simply died, used up faster than expected. "We have to abandon some equipment," Minji said. "Lighten the loads. Move faster." Taemin nodded slowly. It hurt him to leave anything behind. Hana could see that. But he was practical. They stripped down to essential supplies only. 1 heater for the group instead of 2. Minimal food. Basic medical supplies. Everything else got left in the snow. They made 15 kilometers that day. A record, but everyone was running on empty. That night in the shelter, people collapsed into sleep immediately. Only Taemin stayed awake, keeping watch over the single heater, making sure it kept running. Hana woke in the middle of the night and found him still awake, staring at the heater with red eyes. "You need to sleep," she said. "Someone has to watch the heater," he replied. "I will watch it." "You sleep." "Hana, sleep, Taemin. That is an order." He smiled slightly at that. "You cannot order me around." "Watch me," she said. She took his place by the heater. "Sleep, or I will drag you to a corner and sit on you until you do." He laughed quietly, a sound she had not heard from him in days. Then he moved to a corner and closed his eyes. Within minutes, he was asleep. Hana watched him sleep and felt her throat tighten. This human had given them everything. His ship, his supplies, his safety, his health. He had worked himself nearly to death for people he barely knew. And he would keep doing it until it killed him, because that was who he was. The galaxy had abandoned her people. But this one human had refused to look away. That meant something. That meant everything. On the 6th day, they saw it. The terraforming station, rising out of the frozen landscape like a metal mountain. It was still 20 kilometers away, but they could see it. Hope surged through the group like electricity. They pushed hard. Too hard. Another person collapsed. The young mother with the baby. Her body simply gave out from exhaustion and starvation. Taemin carried both her and the baby on his back for the last 5 kilometers. How he did it, Hana did not know. He should not have been able to move anymore. But he did. They camped within sight of the station that night. 12 people left now. 12 out of 14. The losses weighed on everyone, but especially on Taemin. Hana saw the guilt in his eyes every time he looked at the survivors. "We are almost there," she told him. "Because of you. You got us this far." 3 people died, he said. 3 people I could not save. 9 people are alive, Hana countered. 9 people who would be dead without you. Do not forget them while you mourn the ones we lost. He nodded slowly, but she could see he did not really believe it. He would carry those deaths with him forever. On the 7th day, they reached the station. The massive building loomed above them, covered in ice but still intact. Taemin and Minji worked together to force open one of the access doors. Inside, it was dark and cold, but at least the wind could not reach them. Minji led them through dark corridors to the central control room. Emergency lights flickered on as they entered, powered by the station's backup systems. Computer screens glowed with error messages and warnings. "Can you fix it?" Taemin asked. Minji studied the screens, her old fingers moving over the controls. "Maybe. The main system is locked down. Safety protocols. I need to bypass them. It will take time." "How much time?" 12 hours. "Maybe more." Taemin nodded. He set up the last portable heater in the control room. He distributed the last of the food. Then he and Minji got to work. Hana watched them work through the night. Taemin, who knew nothing about terraforming systems, following Minji's instructions perfectly. opening panels, rerouting power, replacing burnt components with improvised fixes. They worked together like they had done this 100 times before. Outside, the wind howled. The cold pressed against the station walls. But inside, hope was building. They were so close now. So close to ending the nightmare. All they had to do was hold on a little L. 16 hours. That was how long it took Minji and Teeman to bypass the safety locks and reboot the terraforming system. 16 hours of constant work, with Teeman following every instruction Minji gave, his hands steady even though he was shaking with exhaustion. The other survivors huddled around the single portable heater, trying to stay warm while they waited. The power cells were almost dead. The heater would last maybe another hour. After that, they would start freezing again, even inside the station. Hannah watched Teeman work. He had not slept in over 30 hours. He had barely eaten. His thermal suit was torn and dirty. His hands were cut and bruised from the repair work. But he kept going, because stopping meant giving up, and Teeman did not know how to give up. Finally, Minji stepped back from the control panel. That is it. The system is ready. I just need to activate the restart sequence. Will it work? Teeman asked. I do not know, Minji said honestly. The system has been locked down for months. There might be damage I cannot see. But this is our only chance. Then do it, Teeman said. Minji pressed the activation button. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the station began to hum. Lights flickered on throughout the building. Computer screens lit up with data streams. Deep below them, massive machines started to wake up. The survivors held their breath. The hum grew louder. The station shook slightly as systems came online one by one. Then, on the main screen, a message appeared in bright green letters. Climate Restoration Protocol initiated. Someone cheered. Then someone else. Soon everyone was celebrating, hugging each other, crying with relief. Even Minji, the stern old engineer, had tears running down her face. Teeman sat down heavily against the wall. He closed his eyes and let out a long breath. Hannah sat down beside him. You did it, she said. Minji did it, Teeman corrected. I just helped. You got us here. Without you, we would all be dead. Teeman opened his eyes and looked at her. 3 people still died. 9 people lived, Hannah said firmly. Remember that. 9 people are alive because of you. I am alive because of you. Before Teeman could respond, alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed on the control panels. Minji rushed back to the screens. What is wrong? Teeman asked, forcing himself to stand. The activation sent out an automated distress beacon, Minji said. Standard protocol. Any ship in range will pick it up. Is that bad? Hannah asked. It depends on who answers, Minji said. They did not have to wait long. 2 days later, while the station system slowly began warming the planet, ships arrived in orbit. A Volition military cruiser, part of the reformed provisional government. And behind it, a human diplomatic vessel. Teeman's distress beacon, the one from his crashed ship, had been transmitting all along. Weak and damaged, but still working. The human ship had picked up the signal and followed it here. When the Volition soldiers entered the station, they found 12 survivors and 1 human. The soldiers wanted to arrest Teeman immediately. He had violated quarantine protocols, they said. He had endangered himself without authorization. He had interfered with a restricted plant. Hannah stepped between the soldiers and Teeman. If you arrest him, you arrest all of us too. He saved our lives. He gave up everything for us. The other survivors moved to stand with Hannah, forming a wall between the soldiers and the human who had saved them. Even little Doyen stood there, his small hand clutching Teeman's torn thermal suit. The standoff lasted until the human diplomats arrived. They negotiated for hours. Finally, they reached an agreement. Taman would face no charges. In exchange for his actions, humanity would provide a full relief mission to Velis Prime, medical aid, supplies, engineers to help repair the terraforming systems. Everything the Galactic Council had refused to provide. Over the next week, as rescue ships arrived and began evacuating survivors from across the planet, the temperature slowly rose. The artificial winter that had killed millions began to retreat. Not quickly, but steadily. The machines were working again. Hundreds of survivors emerged from hiding places across the frozen cities. People who had held on somehow, waiting for help that finally came. Not as many as Hana had hoped. The cold had claimed too many. But enough. Enough to rebuild. Enough to start again. Hana stood with Taman on the station's observation deck, watching the rescue operations below. The sky was still gray, but it was getting lighter. The snow was still falling, but less heavily. The world was waking up from its frozen sleep. "What will you do now?" Taman asked her. "Rebuild," Hana said. "Help my people recover. Make sure what happened here is never forgotten." She looked at him. "What about you?" "The human ship is offering me transport home," Taman said. "My assignment is over. I should report back." "Should?" Hana caught the word. Taman smiled slightly. "The diplomatic team asked if I would stay for a while. Help coordinate the relief efforts. They think having someone who knows the situation would be useful. Will you stay?" "For a while," Taman said. "There is still work to do here. People who need help." Of course, Hana thought. Of course, he would stay. Because that was who he was. Before she could respond, young Do-yoon ran up to them. The boy had stayed close to Taman ever since the journey. He looked healthier now, with regular food and warmth. Some of the emptiness had left his eyes. "Taman," the boy said excitedly. "The rescue people gave me chocolate. Real chocolate. Do you want some?" Taman knelt down and accepted the piece of chocolate the boy offered. "Thank you, Do-yoon. This is very kind of you." The boy beamed at him. Then he ran off to show his chocolate to the other survivors. "He has adopted you," Hana said with amusement. "I do not mind," Taman said. "He is a good kid." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the rescue operations. Then Taman reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. One of the portable heaters from his ship, the smallest one. He offered it to Hana. "What is this for?" she asked. "A gift," Taman said. "So you always remember that even in the deepest cold, warmth can survive. It can be shared. It can grow." Hana took the device, holding it carefully. It was warm in her hands. Not just from the heat it produced, but from what it represented. Hope, kindness, the proof that someone cared when the rest of the galaxy looked away. "I will never forget," she said quietly. "I will never forget what you did for us. What you sacrificed." "It was not a sacrifice," Taman said. "It was a choice. And I would make the same choice again." The human ship was scheduled to leave the next day. The diplomatic team was staying to coordinate relief efforts, but there would be regular shuttles between the planet and the ship. Taman could leave any time he wanted. But that night, at the farewell gathering the survivors held for him, Taman made an announcement. He was officially requesting an extension of his assignment. He would stay on Velis Prime for at least 6 months, helping with reconstruction and recovery efforts. The survivors cheered. Do-yoon hugged Taman's leg so tightly the human had to gently pry him loose. Even Minji, who rarely showed emotion, smiled. Hana pulled Taman aside later that night. "You do not have to stay. You have done enough. More than enough." "I know," Taman said, "but I want to. There is still work to do. And besides, I have made friends here. I do not want to leave them yet." Hana felt her throat tighten. She had spent 3 months thinking she was alone, that nobody cared if she lived or died. Then this human had crashed into her life and proven everything she believed was wrong. "The galaxy abandoned us," she said. "Our own government failed us. But you, one human, refused to look away. Why? What makes humans different?" Tamin thought about it for a moment. "I do not think we are different. I think we just remember something that others forget. That every life matters. That suffering deserves a response. That we are all connected, even across species and stars." He smiled. "Or maybe I'm just stubborn. My mother always said I did not know when to quit." Hana laughed through her tears. "I am glad you are stubborn. I am glad you did not quit on us." Months later, when historians began documenting the tragedy of Velis Prime, they would focus on the numbers. 3 million dead. The Galactic Council's failure to respond. The government collapse. The failed terraforming systems. But they would also record the story of 12 survivors and 1 human who refused to give up. They would record how a stranger sacrificed everything for people he barely knew. They would record how warmth returned to a frozen world, not just through machines, but through one person's determination to help. And on Velis Prime, in the rebuilt cities and recovering communities, children would learn about Tamin, the human who gave everything. The person who proved that kindness can survive even the deepest cold. Hana kept the portable heater Tamin had given her. She kept it on her desk in the years that followed as she helped rebuild her world. On the worst days, when the work seemed impossible and the losses too heavy, she would hold the warm device and remember. The cold had taken everything from her. Her family, her home, her hope. But a human had given it all back. Not the thing she lost, but something better. The proof that in a vast and often cruel galaxy, there were still people who cared. People who would sacrifice everything for strangers. People who believed that every life mattered. And that warmth, the warmth of human kindness and stubborn compassion, would never fade.